In a world where wealth and power often seem to come at a price, there are moments when even the most successful are blindsided by the very people they trust the most. Meet Vincent Sterling, a billionaire hotel owner admired by many for his business acumen and kindness toward his employees. His luxurious hotel chain has built a reputation for excellence, and everything in his life seemed perfect. But what happens when the people closest to you turn against you? What if the loyalty you've spent years cultivating is shattered by betrayal from within? Join us as we uncover the story of Vincent's shocking discovery, a discovery that will change everything he thought he knew about trust and success. But before we dive into this unbelievable story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story filled with twists, emotions, and shocking revelations. Now, let's begin Vincent's journey into the heart of betrayal. Vincent Sterling was the kind of man who seemed to have it all. As the owner of one of the most luxurious hotel chains in the world, he had built his empire from the ground up. His hotels weren't just places to stay, they were destinations, known for their unparalleled service and elegance. Each building gleamed with sophistication, and the staff was handpicked for their dedication to making every guest feel like royalty. Vincent's name was synonymous with success, and his hotels attracted the world's wealthiest and most influential people. Vincent had earned every bit of his fortune, not through shortcuts or manipulation, but with hard work, determination, and a sharp mind. He was meticulous, calculated, and always a step ahead of his competitors. Yet, despite his wealth and status, Vincent's personality set him apart. He wasn't the cold, distant billionaire people might expect. He was approachable, humble, and above all, loyal. Loyalty to his employees was something Vincent valued deeply. Many who worked for him had been with the company for years, some even since the very beginning. He treated them like family, always ensuring they were well taken care of, whether it was through generous pay or creating an atmosphere where everyone felt valued. The hotel chain wasn't just Vincent's business, it was his pride. Every review, every accolade, was a reflection of his vision and dedication. His employees admired him, and guests respected the exceptional standards he set. It wasn't just about money for Vincent, it was about creating a place where both his guests and staff could feel special. Every decision he made was with the aim of maintaining the legacy he'd built. But recently, something felt different. A subtle unease had begun to settle within the walls of the hotel. It wasn't something that could be easily pinpointed, but Vincent could sense it. His employees, once enthusiastic and loyal, seemed distant, their smiles less genuine, their eyes not meeting his as they once did. A strange shift had taken place, and though Vincent couldn't put his finger on it, the feeling of something being wrong began to gnaw at him. As the days went by, Vincent couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted within his hotel. It started with small things, little details he had always been so attuned to. The employees, once eager to greet him with smiles, now seemed distracted. Their energy was different, almost as if they were walking on eggshells when he entered a room. Conversations would suddenly quiet the moment he walked by, leaving a tense silence hanging in the air. The atmosphere, once full of warmth and familiarity, felt cold and distant. Vincent knew his employees well. He had built this hotel chain on the foundation of trust and mutual respect, and to see that bond starting to fray was unsettling. What had changed? Was it something he had done, or was there something going on beneath the surface that he wasn't aware of? Every day, the unease grew, and with it his suspicion. But no one ever came to him with complaints. No one ever said a word about any issues. Everything appeared fine on the outside. Yet something wasn't right, and Vincent could feel it in his gut. Unable to pinpoint the cause of the tension, Vincent decided to take matters into his own hands. If his employees weren't going to tell him what was going on, then he would find out for himself. He needed to see the hotel through the eyes of a guest, away from the facade of his usual authority. So, he hatched a plan, a risky one. He would visit the hotel without anyone knowing who he really was. Disguised as a regular guest, he could observe his staff without the pressure of his status looming over them. The morning of his visit, Vincent slipped into a plain suit, wearing a cap to cover his hair, and a pair of dark sunglasses to shield his face. He wasn't someone who typically liked to hide his identity, but today he had to. He booked a room under an alias and entered the hotel as if he were just another visitor. As he stepped into the lobby, a sense of unease washed over him. The air felt different, charged with something he couldn't immediately place. The usual buzz of excitement and professionalism that filled the space was gone. The staff moved with mechanical precision, but their eyes lacked the usual enthusiasm. The front desk clerk barely looked up as he approached, offering a stiff, disinterested greeting. It was nothing like the warm welcome he had grown accustomed to. Guests who passed by seemed to sense it too, their expressions uneasy, as though they too were aware that something was off. The service was colder, less personal. It was as if the staff were going through the motions without any real care. Vincent felt a pang of disappointment in his chest. This wasn't the hotel he had built. This wasn't the family he had worked so hard to create. And as he walked further into the hotel, the unease inside him deepened. Something had shifted in the heart of his empire, and he was about to discover just how deep the rot had gone. Vincent couldn't shake the nagging feeling that there was more to what he was witnessing. The hotel, once a beacon of excellence, now felt like a shadow of its former self. As he quietly moved through the halls, taking in the subtle changes, he decided to keep a low profile and observe his employees. Without drawing attention to himself, he lingered near the staff areas, his eyes trained on the workers as they interacted with one another. In the break room, a group of employees gathered in a small circle, speaking in hushed tones. Vincent, standing just outside the door, couldn't help but overhear snatches of conversation. At first it was nothing out of the ordinary, talk of shifts, the occasional complaint about long hours. But as the conversation continued, the words began to take a darker turn. He listened, heart pounding in his chest, as the whispers grew more intense. The manager, who Vincent had always considered a reliable and trustworthy leader, was at the center of the conversation. It wasn't just idle chatter. They were discussing how they could intentionally create problems for the hotel. They spoke of sabotaging guest services, intentionally causing issues with bookings, and giving poor experiences to high-profile guests. All of this was aimed at damaging the hotel's reputation. But the most chilling part came next. They weren't just frustrated with the job. They were planning to take the business down entirely. One of the employees, a younger man who had worked in the hotel for only a few years, spoke up with a certain venom in his voice. "If we can make Vincent look bad enough, the hotel will crumble, and when it does, we'll be the ones to step in and take over. He'll have no choice but to sell." The others murmured in agreement, their faces hard with determination. They were planning on destroying everything Vincent had worked for, everything he had built. Vincent's stomach twisted as he listened. His employees, the people he had trusted, were conspiring against him. But it wasn't just about the hotel. This was personal. The betrayal he was hearing in the break room cut deeper than anything he could have imagined. Then, just as Vincent was about to step away, a familiar voice stopped him dead in his tracks. It was his longtime friend, Charlie. Charlie had been with Vincent since the early days of the hotel chain. They had shared countless conversations, worked together through sleepless nights, and celebrated every success. Charlie was more than just an employee. He was practically family. But now, as Vincent listened, he heard Charlie's voice take the lead in the conversation. He was the one orchestrating the entire plan. His voice was steady, calm, even calculating. As he spoke about the future, "We've all been underpaid for far too long. Vincent doesn't understand the pressure we're under. This hotel has become a money machine for him. But it's draining us dry. We deserve more. And if we break him, we can take it all for ourselves." Vincent's heart sank, and his hands shook. The man he had trusted, the one he thought he could always count on, was the mastermind behind this treacherous plot. The pain of betrayal was almost unbearable. To hear Charlie, His friend speak with such coldness about destroying everything they had built together. It shattered Vincent's perception of everything he thought he knew. Charlie's words echoed in Vincent's mind, each one leaving a deeper wound. He'll never see this coming. Charlie had no idea that the very man he had plotted against was standing just feet away, listening to every word. Vincent stood frozen, heart racing, his mind reeling. He had always thought of Charlie as someone he could trust, someone who understood him, who shared his vision. But now Vincent realized that Charlie had been harboring resentment for years, and it had finally boiled over into a full-blown conspiracy. The pain of hearing this betrayal was sharp, like a knife twisting in his chest. How had he missed the signs? How had he been so blind? The realization hit him hard. The very people he had believed in, the ones he had worked to protect, were plotting to bring him down. His hands clenched into fists, not out of anger, but out of a desperate need to process the raw emotions coursing through him. How would he confront this? What would he do now that he knew the truth? One thing was certain: Vincent couldn't let this go unanswered. The people he had once considered family had betrayed him, and he would make sure they understood the cost of their actions. Vincent had heard enough. His heart pounded in his chest as he stood in the shadows, hidden behind the door of the staff meeting room. The employees gathered around the long table, speaking with increasing confidence about their plan to sabotage the hotel. Vincent could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The betrayal was more than just a business tactic. It was a personal attack on everything he had worked so hard to build. His employees, the ones he trusted the most, were actively plotting against him. As he listened, Vincent's anger simmered beneath the surface. The more he heard, the more he knew he had to act. This wasn't just about the hotel anymore. It was about confronting the people who had shattered his trust. It was time to end the secrecy, to make them face the consequences of their actions. Without hesitation, Vincent pushed the door open. The moment he stepped into the room, the chatter died. The employees froze, their eyes widening as they turned toward the man who had just entered. It took a few seconds for them to register who he was. Vincent Sterling, the man they had plotted to destroy. He stood there, his disguise still in place, but his presence undeniable. The room was silent, heavy with the tension that hung thick in the air. The employees, once so confident in their scheme, now seemed unsure, their faces pale with the realization that they had been caught. Vincent's heart ached as he saw the betrayal reflected in their eyes. These weren't just nameless workers. These were people he had considered family, people he had trusted with his dreams, and now they were the ones trying to tear it all down. Charlie, the man Vincent had considered his closest friend, was the first to speak. His voice wavered, and his face flushed with guilt, but he quickly tried to regain his composure. "Vincent, I didn't think you'd find out." Vincent's voice was calm but full of hurt. "I always thought I knew who you were, Charlie. I trusted you with everything. But now, I see what you've become." The silence that followed was thick with discomfort. Vincent's gaze turned to the others in the room, his longtime employees, his loyal staff members. They couldn't even look him in the eye. He could see it now, the resentment they had been hiding for so long. He couldn't believe it. But there was no denying the truth. "What happened to you all?" Vincent asked, his voice barely a whisper, filled with disbelief. "You were part of my family. You were the reason I believed in this hotel, in us. And now you're trying to destroy everything we built. Why? What's the real reason behind all of this?" Charlie shifted uncomfortably in his seat, looking anywhere but at Vincent. Finally, he spoke, his voice low, but filled with a hint of justification. "You don't get it, Vincent. We've been working for you for years, and we've never felt appreciated. We've put in countless hours, and yet you've always been too focused on the bottom line to see what we've gone through. We deserve more. You've treated us like cogs in a machine, and this hotel has become all about you. So we decided to take control, to get what we deserved." The words cut through Vincent like a knife. They thought he didn't appreciate them. He had worked tirelessly to create a workplace where his employees could thrive, where they could be part of something bigger than just a job. But now here they were, betraying him in the worst way imaginable. Vincent's heart shattered, but he refused to let the emotions take over. Instead, he stood tall, his voice shaking with hurt and anger. "You think destroying this hotel will make things better for you? That tearing down everything I've built will somehow give you what you deserve?" Charlie's face hardened. "You've never understood the pressure we were under. It's all about you, Vincent. What about us? What about what we need?" The argument escalated, emotions running high on both sides. Vincent's hurt was palpable, but so was Charlie's bitterness. The employees, who had been complicit in the plot, now seemed to regret their actions, realizing that their rebellion had not only cost them their integrity, but had also cost them the respect of the man who had once been their mentor. Vincent took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you for this, Charlie. You were my friend, my brother, and you've betrayed me." Charlie's face twisted in anger and frustration. "Maybe you should have listened to us sooner, Vincent. Maybe then none of this would have happened." With that, Vincent turned and walked out of the room, his heart heavy with the weight of the betrayal. There was no coming back from this. What was once a family had now been torn apart by greed, by resentment, and by a man's desperate desire to be heard. Vincent didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain: the people he had trusted with everything had forever changed the course of his life. As Vincent walked away from the heated confrontation, his heart felt heavy, the weight of betrayal dragging him down. The emotions he had kept at bay now surged to the surface: anger, heartbreak, confusion, and even guilt. He had spent so much of his life building this empire, focusing all his energy on growing the hotel chain, that he had neglected the very people who had helped him get there. As he walked through the empty halls of the hotel, Vincent began to reflect on his actions, or rather, his inactions. Had I been too distant? Had I pushed them away by always being so focused on the business? The question echoed in his mind. Was their anger a result of my lack of attention? He had always prided himself on treating his employees well, on creating a family atmosphere, but in recent years, he had become more and more consumed by the demands of running such a large business. The stress of maintaining the hotel's reputation, the pressure to keep everything running smoothly, it had all clouded his judgment. His employees had stopped voicing their concerns, and he hadn't noticed. Instead, he had assumed that everything was fine, that they were as invested in the success of the hotel as he was. But he had been wrong. They had been suffering in silence, their frustrations slowly building until it all exploded into betrayal. Vincent couldn't help but feel responsible for what had happened. Maybe I should have seen it coming, he thought. Maybe if I had paid closer attention to their needs, none of this would have happened. The pain of losing his employees, especially Charlie, was a hard pill to swallow, but as much as it hurt, Vincent knew what he had to do. He couldn't let the hotel continue down the path of destruction. He had to take action, no matter how difficult it was. He couldn't allow the betrayal to go unpunished. And yet, a part of him still held on to the hope that things could be salvaged. He made the decision to fire those involved in the plot. As difficult as it was, he had to make it clear that such treachery would not be tolerated. But Vincent wasn't completely without compassion. He gave them one last chance to redeem themselves, one final opportunity to make things right. He told them that if they truly wanted to change, they could return under new leadership, but only if they proved they were willing to earn back his trust. Charlie, his longtime friend, was the first to beg for forgiveness. His voice was filled with regret, his eyes pleading. "Vincent, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I was just frustrated. Please don't let everything we've built end like this." But Vincent stood firm. "The pain was too raw, the betrayal too deep. I can't forget what you've done, Charlie. You've hurt me in ways I never imagined. I wish things could be different, but I can't trust you anymore. Not now, not after this." The other employees, too, begged for a second chance. Some were genuinely remorseful, while others only sought to keep their jobs. But Vincent, though conflicted, knew that he couldn't back down. This wasn't just about maintaining the business. It was about integrity. In the weeks that followed, the hotel went through a difficult transition. The trust that had been shattered could not be easily repaired. Guests noticed the change in atmosphere, and the once bustling hotel felt quieter, less vibrant. Vincent knew it would take time to rebuild what had been lost, but he wasn't about to give up on the hotel he had worked so hard to create. He brought in new management, people who shared his vision of integrity and honesty. Vincent also implemented a new system that gave employees a direct voice in the operations of the hotel. He set up a platform where they could share their concerns openly, without fear of retaliation. He knew this was a critical step in rebuilding trust. Although the road ahead would be long and filled with challenges, Vincent felt a renewed sense of hope. The hotel was facing a tough period, but he was determined to turn things around. He would work harder than ever to restore the reputation of the hotel and rebuild his relationships with the staff. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he had learned a valuable lesson. Success wasn't just about the bottom line. It was about the people you worked with and the trust you built along the way. And with hard work, Vincent believed that he could repair the damage and build something even stronger than before. As the dust settled, and Vincent took a moment to reflect on the painful events that had unfolded, he began to truly understand the gravity of his mistakes. The betrayal had hit him hard, but it had also opened his eyes to something deeper. He had spent so much of his life focused on the bottom line, the reputation, the profits, the accolades. But now he knew that true success wasn't just about what appeared on paper. It was about the people who made everything possible. It was about the employees, the ones who worked tirelessly behind the scenes, the ones who believed in the vision and helped turn it into a reality. Vincent realized that in his pursuit of excellence, he had overlooked something crucial: the need to nurture those around him. He had assumed that his employees understood how much he valued them, but in reality, he had failed to show it. It wasn't enough to give them good pay and benefits. He needed to show them every single day that they were appreciated and heard. He needed to be present for them, not just as a boss, but as someone who genuinely cared. With this newfound understanding, Vincent vowed to never make the same mistakes again. He knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but he was determined to change for the better. He would work harder to listen, to connect with his staff, and to foster a work environment built on trust, respect, and appreciation. Slowly but surely, things began to change. The hotel's reputation, once shaken by betrayal, began to recover. The guests who had once felt the tension in the air began to notice the positive shift. Word spread that the hotel was now being run with integrity and genuine care. Employees who had stayed with Vincent through the tough times started to appreciate the new approach, feeling more valued and heard than ever before. One day, Vincent found himself walking through the lobby of his hotel once more. This time, he didn't feel the weight of the world on his shoulders. There was a new sense of peace in his heart. The hotel wasn't just about luxury and five-star service anymore. It was about creating a space where everyone felt respected and part of something meaningful. As he passed by the smiling staff members and greeted the guests, Vincent realized that this was the true measure of success: not the money, not the accolades, but the people and the relationships he had built along the way. And for the first time in a long while, Vincent knew that he was on the right path, one where both the hotel and the people who made it great could truly thrive. And so Vincent's journey came full circle. Through the pain of betrayal, he discovered a powerful lesson about leadership, trust, and the importance of valuing those who stood by him from the very beginning. It wasn't just about the grandeur of his hotel or the wealth it brought him. It was about the people who helped build it, and learning to appreciate them in ways that went beyond just paychecks and promotions. In the end, Vincent emerged stronger, wiser, and more connected to the very people who helped make his success possible. His hotel began to thrive again, not because of its luxurious amenities, but because of the heart and soul that went into every interaction, every service, and every guest who walked through the doors. Vincent knew that this was only the beginning. A new chapter was unfolding, not just for his business, but for his relationships, his leadership, and his own personal growth. If you found Vincent's story inspiring and believe that true success is about more than just what we achieve, but who we lift up along the way, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Share it with someone who needs to hear that real leadership is built on trust, empathy, and respect. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories that remind us what truly matters in life. And leave a comment below. What lessons did you learn from Vincent's journey? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, remember that success is about the people you surround yourself with. Take care, and see you in the next story.